Let's go ahead and do it. What's going on YouTube? It's fineokay, and today I'm bringing you guys a video on how to team fight as a solo laner. I've been getting a lot of requests to do this kind of video because a lot of people are kind of confused on what exactly they're supposed to be doing, whether it's in a team fight around an objective or just, like sieging or anything like that. And this is going to be a two-part video. The first part we're just going to talk about what you're supposed to do. We're just going to go over everything, your items and stuff like that, what you're supposed to be doing at certain times. And like the different classes of gods and what you're supposed to be doing with each type of god. We're just going to talk about all that kind of stuff. And then the second part, we're actually going to show some gameplay and like analyze it and go over some things. So that's going to get a little bit more in depth. But since this is the part one, we're just going to be talking about everything. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the classes. So the three classes that you're going to be playing in solo right now, these are probably your only three classes you're going to be playing, are Assassin, Warrior, and Guardian. The Assassins, there's a few viable Assassins. I think Camzot's pretty good. Rat is okay, Fenrir is decent, so you could probably get away with those. Every warrior you could probably play in solo. A few are worse than others. I don't think Vamana is too good. I don't think Erling is too good right now, neither is Guan Yu, stuff like that, but pretty much you can get away with anything. And then a lot of these Guardians are actually viable as well, such as like Cerberus, Sobek, Terra, Jingten, Kuzenbo, Athena, all those kind of gods are pretty decent in solo right now. So what we're going to be talking about is how to team fight as these characters. So your first, I guess, class or type of team fighting solo laner is going to be your diving character. And I always talk about like dabbing. I know it's kind of cringe, but it's dive all backlines, and that's what you're supposed to do on these kind of characters. A character like that would be like Bologna, Amaterasu, Kukulkan, Erlang, Osiris, Tyr. A lot of these characters, well, not as much Tyr, but those 5 characters that I just listed are those characters that are going to be diving nonstop. That's their objective in a team fight. So they're going to be looking for the ADC or the mage, and they're just going to try and zone them out. So like I said, Bologna, Kukulkan, not really Herc, but Erlang, Osiris, those kind of gods are just going to be going on their carries, their mage, and their ADC, and just going to make their life really hard to deal with. And basically, they're just going to be creating space for their team. So the best way to make space for your carries, and I've talked about this many times on my stream, is to just go on their carries. You're going to create so much room in between their carries and your carries so that their carries actually can't do damage to your carries, if that makes sense. And that's why you build full tank. That's why I never suggest that you build damage on pretty much any character, because, if you're a full tank Bologna and you're on their carries, it's going to take so long for them to deal with you, so long for them to actually, kill you before they can go back to the rest of the team fight, that you'll probably have won the team fight before then. So that's basically how you play those characters. It's pretty simple. Just dive their carries. Pretty much no matter what. There's some situations around like certain objectives or like towers, like when you're sieging, that you can play a little bit more back. But even then, there's a point where you just hit the gas pedal. You either blink on their back line, or you just go on their back line super hard with like a Bologna or Osiris or a Kukulkan blink or something like that. So those are your diving characters. And there's some assassins that do that as well. I think Camzot's definitely a diving character. You blink on their back line and just kind of go ham, ult, stay in the air forever, and just make sure that their mage and stuff isn't really contributing. And that's why these days you're building to counter their mage, right? You're going like Runic Shield, so you get a little bit of damage, but also just counter their mage super hard. You're getting Guardians, you're getting Minions and Thorns. That's a whole important point of these characters, is that you have Thorns and maybe like Blink, or TP and maybe Thorns, or TP and Blink. You're just going to get to that back line and close that gap super fast. So that's the point of those characters. There's some Guardians are even like that. I would say that it's a little bit situational, but Cerberus and I think Sobek can dive the backline pretty well. Even Kuzenbo, I think Kuzenbo is probably the best example of somebody who's going to be diving the backline super well, because you want to get to those carries and make sure you're reflecting all their damage back at them. So those are example of Guardians that also will dive. But also these characters can, at least as the Guardians, these characters can actually be played a little bit differently. They can be playing with your carries, and you can be able to pluck their front lines, for example, on Sobek, and that's like a free pick some of the time. So it's just a little bit situational. So let's talk about those picks now. These are going to be your support picks, and they're usually the Guardians. There's a few Warriors that are actually like that. What a support pick, I guess, is in solo is somebody that's going to be staying with your carries instead of going on their carries and diving their backline. There's some situations where you might do that, but for the support picks, most often you're going to be playing as like a 5-man huddle, 5-man group, and you're just going to be playing together. A good example of that would be like Guan Yu. Now, Guan Yu can sometimes dive the backline, but he wants to stay with his allies so that he can heal them and stuff. Another decent example of that is Tier, I think, because he can, fearless their front line out of position and it can give you free picks. Another good example is Odin, because there's a lot of good targets he can get with his cage. And then most of these Guardians actually can be played like that, especially like something like Terra, something like Cerberus can still be played like that. Athena even, just taunting their front line, making sure that you're staying around your carry so that you can set up for them. And the reason that Guardians are more supporty than Warriors is that they have a lot more CC, so it's just a lot better setup for your team and just easy picks, easy poking, and easy kills. So that's kind of why you do that. What's up, Ham? So those are like your support characters, and I think there's a couple assassins even like this. Like Fenrir can still, Fenrir can be played to dive their backline, and that's one way to play the team fights on him. But another way is also to just stay with your team and then also ult the front line and then bring him to your team and just get a free pick on that. Same with something like Thanatos. Thanatos, I think, is still viable. And something that you can do with him is stay towards your team, fully dive, or not fully dive, but fully commit on like a front line and then just get a free execute off, and then you're instantly winning the team fight. So the two classes, or the two styles, I guess, for a team fight that I'm trying to explain to you guys is, one is you're going to be diving, you're going to be going on their carry super hard, or the other is you're going to be supporting your team, staying near your carries. So you kind of just have to figure out in the middle of a team fight, well, first of all, you need to know what character you're playing. If you're playing a character that's just better at diving, then you should be doing that. If your jungler is also another diving character, say you're playing Kukulkan and your jungler is a Camazotz, your Camazotz is going to want to blink on their backline, and you're playing Kukulkan, so you're going to go on their backline, and it's just a easy way to get free kills and also just zone them out. So that's the two styles of how to team fight, really. It's pretty simple. When you're actually team fighting, it's about 25 minutes into the game, 30, maybe 30 minutes into the game, maybe a little bit shorter. Basically around any objective, around any gold fury, around any like sieging or towers or anything like that. That's how you're going to want to play the team fight. But again, it's based on the character you're playing and your team comp. Another thing we need to talk about for team fighting, especially around objectives, is what the solo laner's job is to do around the objective. So let's say I'm playing Kukulkan, for example, since he's a very good pick right now. We're around Gold Fury. I could either be doing two things. I could be tanking the Gold Fury because I'm the tankiest character in the game, right? As a solo laner, I'm going to be the one ahead. I should be the one tanking the Gold Fury so that nobody is taking poke. Or, and this is probably the more common thing, I should be the one zoning. I should be the one initiating the fight, making sure that I'm playing up towards their side of the map so that if they try and walk in, I can either zone them out and we can just get gold, or we can instantly start a fight because I'm right up against their opponents, right? I'm like right in their red buff. I'm right up on their mid camps or anything like that. So those are your two options around Gold Fury and also around Fire Giant. A lot of times what you're going to have to do is, if you're going to want to, maybe bait fire a little bit, you can start fire as the solo laner and then instantly leash it and go and look for their carries or whoever's trying to come in and steal. And you kind of just have to decide right then and there, whether it's going to be a full commit to fire or you're going to drop it and just bait it and try and start a fight immediately. So those are your two options when you're actually playing around objectives. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's two styles to team fighting, like I said. You just kind of have to figure out which one your character is actually better at, which one your comp fits more. Usually it's going to be diving, and especially in ranked, the best way I think to win ranked is not to rely on your teammates, but to try and carry on your own. And the best way to do that, I think, is to dive their backline and play a character that's good at that, like Kukulkan, Osiris, Camazotz, stuff like that. For example, I think a good example of a character that can do both is Hercules, because Hercules can pluck their front line, pluck their people who are up close and out of position, and put them into your team, and then you can get a free pick on that. And that's one way to play Herc. But Herc can also dive the backline pretty easily because he is so tanky and he can one-shot their carries. So these are example of a few characters that you just have to figure out mid-team fight what you need to do. If somebody's out of position, bam, you're going to play it a support style. If the fight's looking weird and your jungler's diving and you need to go help him, then maybe you just need to immediately turn into somebody who's going to be diving super hard. So with these characters that can do both, that's the only real decision you have to make as a solo laner and somebody that's maybe not too experienced in the solo lane. The only decision you have to make is, okay, do I need to support my team because I'm playing a character that can do both, or do I need to dive the backline because, again, I'm playing a character that can do both? You just kind of got to figure that out. But for the most part, your character is going to do one or the other. So, you know, just figure out what your character is best at and go ahead and do that. So, yeah, make sure you guys continue to dive all backlines. Also, support your team if you need it. For example, I've played a lot of Terra in the SPL so far already, just because my team's super good and you know, well, that's not the only reason, but they can carry me. And I know that if I just play a really good team fighting character and not worry about like really losing the lane, then I'll be in a good spot. But again, like I said, for ranked, I definitely suggest playing characters that can dive the backline and kind of do things on their own. So yeah, it's pretty simple. This is the first part of the video on how to team fight. I know we just kind of like talked about it, but in the next part of the video, we're actually going to show some gameplay, analyze it, and show you how you actually team fight and stuff as these characters. So I hope that this information was helpful. And again, like I said, we didn't really talk about the builds, but for the builds, you're basically building as tanky as possible and countering their mage and their ADC. That's your whole objective. I mean, the items like that are like Runic Shield, Midgardian, Hide of the Nemeans, Hide of the Urchin I think is good if they have knockup, Stone of God, stuff like that. Just making sure you're tanky as possible. So because your base damages will carry you in these team fights, you'll be able to kill their carries because your base damages are high enough and they don't really have defense or anything like that. So that's basically it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Look out for part 2. This is part 1 of how to team fight as a solo laner. Peace out, guys.